Hello, Night Nation. Trace Strelko here. This is the Sons of UCF Live. UCF Mike on assignment. Adam, always here. Hello, Adam.
Fancy seeing you again, Trace. It's been, this is the third night this week we've been together. Wink, wink.
Of course, that was Tuesday night in reaction to the 2023 UCF schedule, the Big 12 portion of it being released, of course, and catch that on our YouTube channel. We're going to be talking more about the Big 12 with our guest from the 10-12 network. And then, of course, we got together and talked to former UCF offensive lineman Ryan Swoboda earlier in the week.
Quite a week. I'm exhausted, but a good week of content, again, available on the YouTube channel and anywhere you get downloadable podcast-style content. We are there for you.
We had opportunity to speak with UCF head coach Gus Malzahn on Wednesday. He happy to talk about all of the new faces, his boom from Wednesday. A little bit of a curveball there, right? Andrew Harris, the highly touted linebacker out of Altamont Springs, like Brantley High, commits to UCF. His brother goes to Maryland, so UCF split the difference on this one.
Yeah, obviously it's been an interesting recruiting cycle with the Harris twins. They were one-time commits, then decommits. There was rotations with Travis Williams in Arkansas. That seems to have fizzled. And then a Maryland UCF battle. I think the prevailing thought was that they would not split up. But lo and behold, they decided to pull the okey doke and have indeed split up. I think Andrew's the higher rated of the prospects. So if you're going to judge by those rating programs, perhaps UCF got the better caliber player by just an inch. But if anything, Trace, the transfer portal always open. So when you're that far away from your friends, your family, maybe Michael decides to join at some point. But linebacker position of need, young linebackers are great. Ernie Sims, the new linebackers coach, seems to have just a world of personality. So let's hope this is a fit. It's good to keep a 4-star kid at home. Would have loved 2 of them, but it's good to keep a 4-star kid at home.
And of course, in the age of collectives, there's going to be dollars out there to woo players. And it's interesting now, how much playing time must Andrew Harris get in order to be happy in UCF colors?
It's a great question. I mean, you would imagine he'd have opportunity with the linebacker core kind of being a bit reset from last year. I think Jason Johnson, obviously the name there, but seems like that second or third spot potentially will be open, will be available. So if you can come in and play and play well, I imagine you're going to get some reps. So I think it's all on Andrew Harris now to prove himself. But I would think in that position specifically, opportunity will exist. So you come in and play well, listen to coaches, you may find yourself on the field. Cam Moore was on the field a bunch this year. So there's no reason to think that Andrew Harris can't be the same.
True. You've shown on the screen the list of names that we've been hearing about, now more official, of course, and some rankings that are interesting. UCF 30th overall class by ranking, by average, from 24/7. 4th in the Big 12 behind Texas, of course, leaving to the SEC, as is Oklahoma. And then TCU, they had a pretty good year. So UCF 4th in that mix. 3 of the top 6 highest signees ever. What are your takeaways looking at the names on screen?
As I look at this list, I see offensive linemen times 4. That was obviously a position group that last year had a little bit of ups and downs, losing, now 3 guys essentially off that line from last year, and Swoboda, Jackson, and Matt Lee. You need to rebuild and reload a little bit. So I see a lot of O-linemen in there. We've talked about, Trace, if you're going to go to the Big 12, depth is important. Depth on the lines is even more important. Bringing in these 4 large human beings, plus the guys who are returning from last year's team, the ones we know, the ones we don't know. I really like the O-line. And here's the thing, Trace. I think this class in particular, you don't see a lot of quote-unquote skill players on here, right? Not a running back on this list. 2 wide receivers on this list. A lot of that to replace, the folks that have left. I think typically we've gone after a lot of skill guys. I like the fact that we're going after some positions of need here in offensive line. Long snapper is another example of that as well. So I like that Gus is finding specific holes in the roster and filling those holes versus falling in love with maybe a speedster or somebody like that and maybe giving a spot away that we could use for something from a depth perspective.
I asked Coach Malzahn if this roster was basically set now, how many roster spots did he still have available? And he ducked that, deflected it, said that they're going to be studying things and keeping options open, which of course means maybe you lose some guys as well in around spring camp and after the spring game.
Yeah, portal window, I think is what May 1st to May 15th is the second round of portal window. So you may see somebody do something very similar to what Jalen Robinson did last year, go through spring ball, go through the spring game, graduate there in that spring semester and put their name in the portal at that point. So Gus is clearly assuming that you're going to have a name or two pop into that bucket. Maybe that explains some of the different signees we've had here, but college football calendar doesn't close anymore, Trace. So it's always open for business.
On Wednesday, we had opportunity to speak with Fred Davis, a defensive back who transfers in from Clemson, Amari Kite, the offensive lineman, big guy, 6'7", more than 300 pounds, who was with Alabama. As well, Trent Whittemore, a name a longtime UCF fans know, as his dad was a part of the Knights in the 90s. He's a wide receiver who graduated from Florida, transfers over for his grad year, and Jyra Wilson, who knows a little thing or two about UCF as he was a part of the ECU program. So interesting to talk to these guys, get to know them, and we'll be, of course, seeing more of them. Question that was on my mind as Coach Malzahn was open to questions. I asked him about John Rice Plumlee and the time split. And then today is baseball media day. And Coach Greg Lovelady, Knights baseball coach, was asked this same question about how JRP is going to split his time. And you've put together those sound bites. Let's listen, and then we'll talk a little bit more about that.
John Rice is going to go through most of spring. We're still kind of working through that, but he's committed to doing that, and we're committed to kind of making that work. But I expect him to be a part of most or all of spring.
Gus and I had worked super close together in the last 6 weeks, just coming up with a plan. John Rice will participate in both spring ball and obviously baseball season, and so. Obviously exactly how that is working, it's just kind of a week-to-week thing. Obviously just trying to figure out their exact schedule with our exact schedule and put the pieces together.
But Greg Lovelady would go on to say that don't ask JRP about this time split and how he's going to juggle the two things. Let him be a kid, let him enjoy things, which I thought was interesting, the way Coach Lovelady was trying to protect QB1 and his time split. I was not able to be there because of work commits, of course, but I would like to JRP to answer that question on his own.
Yeah, here's what's interesting. They're both saying the same thing, right? They got the party line. We're going to make this work, but there's still a lot of non-committalness to this, right? Gus was like, I expect him to be here for most of spring practice. Greg
What does that mean?
said, we're going to take it week by week. So I still think there's a little ambiguity to figure out how this is going to come together. And I'm curious, how it will play out, and who ultimately gets the final say in it. Is it one of the two coaches? Is it John Rice Plumlee? I think we've talked about this, but the spring game is up against a baseball contest at home that evening. So somebody's going to have to make a decision on what JRP does that night. Who gets to make that decision? Who's calling that shot? Is it John Rice? Is it one of the two coaches? I still think that while they're saying the right things, it doesn't feel like they've really got that mapped out just yet. It seems like one of those things where if it works, it works. And when it doesn't work, we'll kind of figure it out from there. So I don't walk away feeling super satisfied that I know the commitment level that John Rice will be able to have for both sports. Selfishly, I want him to have more commitment time to the football side, because obviously that's for us probably the more important position, the quarterback for the starting quarterback for a Big 12 team. But I don't walk away any more feeling any better about what that timeshare is going to look like.
I wonder what new offensive coordinator Darren Hinshaw, who, as Coach Malzahn has said, will be calling the plays, right? He's going to install what he wants, and you'd like QB1 to be there for all of it. Of course, the spring game to me is just a glorified practice. It's the work that goes in before then, and you'd like to think that JRP would be fully committed to that. They may have it worked out, and they may not be sharing it fully with us, but I think you opened it up right there. There are questions about it, and they're going to linger. So here we are with a QB battle that raged throughout 2022, likely to continue in 2023, and now it crashes into the baseball season as well. So you get the star power of JRP, but you get the questions. But according to Greg Lovelady today, you don't get to ask JRP those questions. I don't think that'll be the last of that. I think he's going to get asked about it at some media availability after a game or something, so it may not be the last of that. So just before we went on, someone said on Twitter, Jason said, big news week. We went on live Tuesday and we talked about the 2023 schedule. UCF releasing that, what they're going to be playing, those home and aways, the Big 12 coming out with that schedule. And we had opportunity to talk about it. There's been one change since that announcement came out, UCF saying that Baylor now, Saturday, September 30th, is family weekend, not Villanova on September 16th. As you've had time, 48 hours now, to digest the schedule a little bit more. Any different thoughts than you had when we came together on Tuesday night?
Yeah, I still think the back half of that schedule, Trace, I think those last 6 games really are going to sort of make or break the season. I don't think that's a revolutionary hot take. I think those final 6 games are going to really kind of tell a lot about the season. And I'm interested to figure out how will UCF respond in road games, right? We certainly had our challenges in AAC environments on the road. Obviously, a lot of these facilities are going to be larger than what we saw in the AAC. How are we going to play on the road when we're in Oklahoma? We're at Texas Tech. So I think that back half of the schedule to me is going to be the most important part. And how many of those can you win? I think I'm okay. I think we can go 4-2 in that first 6. I think that's the high water mark, or rather the low water mark, I guess. Go 4-2. But that back half, I think, is going to be crucial for how we turn out in the 2023 season.
We've been talking about depth. We just talked about the new faces coming in from the transfer portal. The back half is when that team may wear down. And do you have the depth, especially along the offensive and defensive lines, right? So you got to bank those wins when you can. That Boise State game, to me, could be the key between 5 wins, 6 wins, a 7th win possibly. I'm really being tempered in my expectations for the season. But if there's some erosion over the second half of the season due to injuries, you don't want to find yourself in a position where you need to win 3 or 4 games in that second half because you stumbled out of the gate.
Yeah, and luckily we have some opponents in Cincinnati and Houston in that back half that we're used to. We played before. It's been a couple of years since we played Houston, though, so we may have some getting to know them again about this. But two opponents in the back half we played before, an environment in Cincinnati that we've been at before. Not saying that's going to be an easy W, but obviously you've got some familiarity there. So I think that back half will be important. And again, I think we got to sweep the non-conference. We got to go 3-0 in those first non-conference. Boise on the road won't be a pushover. I think they've been a decent team of late, playing on the blue turf, flying all the way across the country, getting used to that. I think could be interesting. So I think you got to go 4-2 at minimum on that front side. And to your point, hope for the best in terms of health. Hope for the best in terms of performance at that point. Hopefully the offense is clicking. I do like the bye week is smack dab in between the first 6 games. I think that's helpful. I do like the bounce back between road and home. I think that gives the kids a little bit of change here and there. So we'll see. It's definitely, there's some challenges on that schedule for sure. But if we play as we're capable of playing, Trace, I think we all feel comfortable saying that we can be in the majority of these games if the right UCF team shows up, if the offense is clicking, if the defense has had any sort of improvement from last year. I think we all feel good we can be in all these games. But to your point, do we have the depth, and can we be mentally sound, mentally tough to win those games? I think that's the part that we have to kind of see how that plays out on the field.
Broke up the 6 opponents into 2 polls, alphabetical order as I like to do, and then Boise State emerged in the first group of road games, and Oklahoma overwhelmingly as the game most exciting for UCF fans. So I paired them together.
I wonder why.
Paired them together, 73% said the road game on the schedule they're most excited about, Oklahoma. So no surprise there. And without Oklahoma on that schedule, you'd think Boise State, that was the game people were talking about. Of course, that's the only one anybody knew about until this Big 12 schedule came out.
Well, Trish, everyone loves a good revenge game, right? And everyone circled this on the calendar, good revenge game. Batavius Thompson, you better watch out, buddy. Revenge game at Oklahoma.
Is he still on the team? Is he still eligible?
Actually getting any carries, but he's on the roster.
Yeah, still on the roster. So it's been interesting to see fan reaction. There's been excitement, though, haven't you noticed that? Message boards and social media. Different opponents. We're not talking about Temple. We're not talking about ECU. Some new names, and boy, an awful lot of trash talk in the last 48 hours with new fan bases.
Yeah, a lot of juice with the schedule. I think, every year you kind of fall a little bit into the lull of, it's the same teams. It's Temple, it's ECU. We're going to go play the Cows, blah, Tulane, blah, blah, blah. I think new teams, new juice. I think, some of the new schools in the Big 12 are starting to poke the bear a little bit on our side. Of course, everybody in the Twitter sphere for UCF loves when someone pokes the bear. So, people are piling in on that too. But yeah, a lot of this is probably February 2nd is usually not the time that the Twitter sphere is fired up with a lot of trash talk, a lot of excitement. But But I think that's what you get by going to a new conference. I think it brings a little bit of juice, as much as, perhaps the fan bases outside of Orlando are assuming that they don't like us. I think they also love the juice. They love the ability to have this conversation. So I think if I'm the Big 12, I love the fact that, it's already getting mixed up and it's only February.
Perhaps not as much hate directed at Cincinnati and Houston on social media the last 48 hours. I've picked up followers from different fan bases, and
Yes.
I don't know if you saw it earlier today, a guy from Texas Tech jawing at us that we ripped on Lubbock, and I defended Lubbock.
You did. You have been pro Lubbock since the beginning.
When I heard about the Prairie Dogs, I was all in on Lubbock.
Yeah.
And
No,
UCF I couldn't be with us, but he hopped on and he pushed back against the guy, the Texas Tech.
Yeah, I mean, you can just sign Mike up for whatever whatever the normal take is. Sign Mike up for the opposite. That's how that usually works out. Yeah, you've been pro Lubbock from the start. Anybody out there trying to throw the Lubbock slander at one Trace Trelko, don't bring it here, friends. Trace Trelko, pro Lubbock. He cannot wait to get out to Lubbock. He's also pro Kansas, both of them. I know he's talked to me off air about how he's planning his Kansas trip. So you've got a guy in Trace Trelko, pro Lubbock, pro Kansas, plural. So I don't know what more you people want.
I just find it exciting to go to new places. I've been to Greenville a time or three.
Just go to Iowa to see Matt, please. Matt really wants you to be in Iowa. Please just go. We don't play Iowa State, so I don't know if you're going to be there.
You wouldn't know it. You wouldn't know it from social media with the back and forth with the Iowa State fans. Coming up, we hope that we'll hear from Philip, the founder of the 1012 Network.
Well, we can hear from him right now if you want, Trace.
Has he joined us? All right.
I think he's plugging his microphone in though, so I don't want to go to him too soon.
Back in the green room, of course, the Suns are part of the 1012 podcast.
I see headphones. I see smiles. I think that means he's ready for us. Here he is.
Hey, Philip Slavin. Welcome back to Sons of UCF Live.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's a pleasure to be here, as always, coming to you live from my children's playroom.
It's the best place.
We would not expect anything less. So we're going to get into this schedule and your assessment of it, but did you expect Iowa State and UCF fans to be going back and forth?
At some point, I wasn't sure how long it would take. I thought it might wait until at least closer to the season or until July when UCF and the other incoming 4 members had officially joined. But I mean, you guys didn't wait very long. You're just welcome to the Big 12. This is what it's like on a regular basis, and you're getting a solid indoctrination all the way here in February.
What do you make of UCF's schedule? Some fans not happy that it didn't get Texas or Oklahoma in the bounce house. Of course, UCF will go to Oklahoma. It does not play Texas. What's your assessment when you look at the UCF schedule?
I mean, here's the thing. With that Oklahoma and Texas are probably not going to be around past 2023. It threw everything out of the window because the original plan was Oklahoma and Texas will be here for 2 years, have a 14-team Big 12 conference, and everyone will get the opportunity to play everybody once. Can't promise everybody gets to host everybody, but you'll get to play everybody once. Well, now you probably get 1 year. And I think that's why you got a 2023 schedule and not a 23 and 24. Like they are working to get Oklahoma and Texas out early, which is unfortunate for those who got what they feel like is a raw deal. I mean, you look at Oklahoma State, it's a team that recruits in the state of Texas, plays Texas on a regular basis. They don't have any of the 4 legacy Big 12 Texas teams on the schedule this year. They're gonna have a trip to Houston and that's it. So everyone's probably got a few complaints here or there as to what they got. Obviously for UCF, it is disappointing. You're not getting to host either school. I am a little bit shocked, but I'm gonna bet there was a little bit of negotiation done to buy both programs to avoid having to go all the way to Orlando. That is my opinion. I can't put any data to that whatsoever, but I understand UCF fans' frustration with not having an opportunity to face either of those teams in Orlando for what is likely the one time they're going to be in the Big 12 with Oklahoma and Texas before they leave.
Philip, I've been reading your tweets. We're going to get back to that in a second, but you had one that said essentially the Big 12 schedule makers did not do UCF any favors with this schedule. Why do you have that assessment?
Because of the way I think that it is put together. Look, you have to open Big 12 play on the road against Kansas State. And part of this is John Wheeler, who's kind of our 1012 network stats guy, who helped us last season, will help us out, I think, more this coming fall. He and I did a way too early power rankings. And while we have some differing opinions on where the teams kind of stack, and we did them a 4-tier system as opposed to 1 through 14 because you're insane and out of your mind if you're trying to rank all 14 teams all the way back in January, February. But based off of my expectations for the season going at this point, and we got a long way to go, I don't think they did UCF any favors. You got to go to Kansas State, who I think is going to be one of the better teams. If you get Baylor at home, but I do think they're going to have a bounce back season. You go to Kansas, and for every UCF fan who's sitting already marking this as a W, like, understand this is not Kansas of the last decade plus. This is a good Kansas team, and I expect them to continue to improve. Even if the record stays 6-6 this season, it's going to continue to be a better Kansas program. Just auto W that, especially on the road. You go to Oklahoma. You get West Virginia at home. That's nice. You go to Cincinnati, who you're familiar with, and then you have Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, and Houston, but you got to go to Texas Tech. So you have Kansas State, Baylor, and Texas Tech, and Oklahoma, 4 of the teams I have pretty good expectations for in the Big 12. You don't get, the only one you get at home is Baylor. So you go to Oklahoma, you go to Kansas State, you go to Texas Tech. I just, from my expectations of who will have success in 2023 in the Big 12, I think this schedule is, I understand for UCF fans coming in, like Texas Tech, they're not any good. Last year was a good Texas Tech team that continued to improve. I think they're going to continue to improve under Joey McGuire. It's a Kansas team you got to go on the road and face who's going to be sneaky better than they have been in the past. The teams I expect more towards the bottom of the conference standings, you get West Virginia at home, great. You get Oklahoma State at home. I have no idea what to expect from Oklahoma State this year. I don't think anybody does with the mass exodus they saw of players who had an impact last season, the last 2 seasons. But outside of that, I don't think this schedule was stacked in a way for UCF to come in and expect to have great success. Not that they're not going to come in and have a good year, but I don't think they did UCF any real favors here.
What's the toughest road game in your opinion? Obviously, you've got Kansas State, and Oklahoma are part of the top 3 contenders. What's the toughest road game in your view?
I mean, all 3 of those are difficult for varying reasons. Texas Tech, Lubbock is a Kansas to play. That place gets rowdy. And those fans, especially right now, are bought in. They had a successful season in year 1 for Joey McGuire. Their expectations going into this year are going to be higher. And with that game late in the season, if Texas Tech is having a good year, that's just going to be that much more difficult on the road in Lubbock. And God help you if it's a night game. Manhattan is a tough place to play. Kansas State is a very good home team. And of course, playing in Norman. I mean, if you ask me which one's going to be the most difficult, I would pick one of OU or Texas Tech, in part because it comes later in the season. Here's how I look at it. I think UCF can have success out of the gate. But
Here we go. Here we go. Nobody ever falls for this. Hold on. Oh, nice.
Nice job.
That's beautiful. That was beautiful.
He didn't say hand on the rim, so
He did not.
Did you want me to hang? Like I can't. It's a little.
I think no. Listen, we do this every week, and no one ever responds to poor Robert. So I'm glad we just got something out of you there.
I'm here to make everyone happy. My concern for UCF is the same concern I have for every one of the 4 incoming schools. It's yes, you guys play Power 5 schools, and yes, you guys do very well against them. The schedule is more difficult in the Big 12 than it was in the AAC. I don't think any UCF fan is going to argue with that. And where you're going to see that is towards the back half of the end of the season. I would almost argue at this point, I think Texas Tech's going to be the most difficult road game because you go to Norman off of an idle week, guys in college football. You guys have the road game at Cincinnati. You're familiar with playing Cincinnati. You're familiar with playing at Cincinnati. I think in Lubbock in November is going to be the most difficult road game.
This is live, folks.
Yeah, I will. I got to give me 1 second. I'll be right back.
Yeah, we'll take. Is it your turn for questions, Trace? I forgot.
It'll be my turn.
Okay.
But it is what we talked about, right? That second half of the schedule and the depth. And Cincinnati's no easy road game. There are no gimmies on the schedule, say Villanova and Kent State. The whole Big 12 schedule going to be new for UCF, going to be tough week in and week out.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what he's getting at, right? I think to the point of a lot of people, these teams are beatable, but these aren't going to be pushover games, I think is what he's getting at. These aren't going to be games where we're going to go in and just blow people out. We may win some of these games 28-27, right? We may win some of these games 34-31, but I don't think it's a situation where, if I'm hearing Philip correctly, that he's saying we're going to go in there and just blow the doors off of people. I think they're going to be close games where we'll have opportunities to win, and the other team will as well. So that's exciting though, man. Like I think, and if you tell me you get a good game like that, I don't know if I've had enough heart medication to stand a full season of that, but I think that's the element, is that there will be some times where we're going to be in some close games against some teams that you might go, oh, they don't really win a lot, but it sounds like what Philip's saying is, any Saturday, these teams are talented enough and put enough on tape that they can be successful.
Mom's a book club, so it's daddy put down, and you know
happens,
how that goes.
It's fine. What we were saying while you were away is that there are no gimmies on the schedule in Big 12 play. It's not the South Floridas and the Temples of the world anymore that UCF fans are going to have to get used to. How would you evaluate the schedules for Texas and Oklahoma on their way out, be it one season or two? Did the Big 12 treat them nicely on the way out?
Yeah. I think Oklahoma and Texas I've seen a lot of people say that Texas has a very difficult schedule, and I'll start there. And I would say, from a standpoint of who Texas has on the schedule, yes, that's fair. They've got TCU, Texas Tech, Baylor, and Houston, because all the Texas teams wanted to have their at least one shot at Texas. That's understandable. I get it. But yes, they have Texas Tech, who I think highly of, Kansas State, who I think highly of, Iowa State on the road, who I think highly of, obviously Oklahoma every year. But the thing for Texas is they only leave the entire state of Texas twice all year. Week 2 to go to Alabama, and week 12 to go to Iowa State, which is, we have no idea what to expect from Iowa State this year. So from a who they have to face, I think Texas got a difficult schedule. But the fact that they don't have to leave the state more than twice all year, and that's way at the end, the beginning and the end, and only once in conference play, is, I think, doing them a favor. I do. I get it. Everyone in Texas wanted to be able to play Texas one last time before they left, because it could be a very, very long time. And this is the case. It's going to be a long time. I mean, years and years before some of the current remaining Big 12 schools, the Legacy 8, are going to get another shot at Oklahoma or Texas again. Because, I don't see Oklahoma and Texas lining up to schedule all the remaining 8 Big 12 schools in non-conference, unless, of course, Fox tells them they have to get out early, yada, yada, yada. But I understand from Texas standpoint, I'm very torn on this. They've got to go to BYU late in the season, but I think that benefits Oklahoma because, as I talked about, I think the later in the season it gets, there's going to be benefits to teams who have more depth and more Power 5 depth than those who don't, though it is BYU who is used to playing more Power 5 on their schedule. They have to play 3 of their last 5 are on the road, which I think is tricky, but they got their idle week after Red River. Usually the week after Red River is a tricky spot for them, but they get to have that week off, which is crazy. They get UCF at home. I do think opening on Big 12 play Cincinnati is an interesting spot for them. So on the one hand, I think the way the schedule stacks up is not as kind to Oklahoma, but I almost think that the level of difficulty with who all they have is not as great as Texas's. It's kind of a reverse. I think Texas's schedule of who they face is harder than Oklahoma's, but I think Texas's where they face them is a lot kinder than Oklahoma's is.
All right, Philip, you talked about social media blowing up and UCF fans already mixing up with some people. New segment on the show. You are the first person to endure this segment. It's called Explain Your Tweet. So this is you, Philip, saying that the online fan base UCF has been in minor leagues.
Yes.
I don't know where that slots you in terms of new Big 12 villain, somewhere behind Cyclone Larry, I assume. Would you care to explain your tweet on calling UCF and the online fan base minor leagues?
Now, okay. I said playing in the minor leagues. I did not say you were minor leagues.
Okay.
Let's mix some metaphors here. Let's start with this one. Everything is relative, right? I'm pushing 40 and I'm tired. I've got 3 kids 4 and under, as you could hear a couple of them. And so, when I show up to work on a month, I might be tired. And so too might be the 23-year-old single guy that I work next to. And he's going to roll in and say, man, I am tired this morning. I have learned in my age, I'm not going to criticize him because I too, at that age, remember being tired on a Monday morning. It is all relative to our situation. UCF has obviously had interactions with Alabama, with Auburn, with Florida and Florida State and Miami, and that's great. But that is not the same thing as having to wake up every single day with fan bases as online as Iowa State, Texas Tech, and Kansas State, where that you are now someone who is in their crosshairs from the moment that they wake up. Florida, obviously, you guys interact with here and there. But in the AAC, like, don't try and tell me that Temple is some diehard fan base you're having to fight with. Don't tell me Tulsa is some diehard fan base.
Owl Nation, Philip. Owl Nation. Come on now.
Who? I'm sorry. Like
Tulsa's a sore subject around here too, by the way.
AC is not the Big 12. And one of the things that, and if you really pay attention, there's a lot of the Iowa State and Kansas State fans who are involved in these interactions that we love this. This is like fighting with family. Like, you guys are part of the Big 12 now. Welcome. Come on in. This is what we do with each other. It is good. If you guys are getting tired of Cyclone Larry less than 48 hours after you started coming after you, you better just put on some armor, because it ain't going to get any easier.
And UCF doesn't even play Iowa State.
No, not even playing in 23.
We already know about him.
So look, saying minor leagues is this. You can be an incredible pitcher, but showing up to Yankee Stadium for a 3-game series or for the full season is a whole lot different than spending a Tuesday night in Albuquerque. You guys have been spending a lot of Tuesday nights in Albuquerque. Now you're in a conference. Now you're in a conference where every fan base is diehard and breeds by their team, by football, by basketball. I'm not saying that there aren't AAC programs and fan bases that aren't like that. They're all going to say they love their team, but it is not the same thing. My running joke is, if you put a poll on Twitter and asked who had the best college baseball team and put Iowa State, they would win it. The punchline is Iowa State doesn't have a baseball team. Okay. Then the Big 12 got, let's be frankly honest, dumped on when the news of Oklahoma and Texas leaving came out, and you got to see people, Stu Mandel, Big 12 fans' least favorite person in sports media, just talk crap about and almost celebrated its demise just because it was fun for clicks. Well, you already had Iowa State, who was super online, as you all know. I'd only encourage Texas Tech and Kansas State to grow as well. And Rye is on par with Iowa State. So the point is this: saying it's the minor leagues is not a shot at UCF. It's a shot at the AAC fan bases. You're a different league now. And you guys are holding your own. And I'm not, look, I saw the tweet from UCF's athletic department, which is absolutely bravo. This league is going to be just incredible, just insane. I had Ryan Nani of Shutdown Fullcast on the latest 10-12 podcast, and he kind of said similar to what I'm saying, but it's the same. Like, I think you guys are actually more among brethren now, and sistren, which is apparently the actual female version of that. And we have female sports, and I love softball more than you have ever been. And I think you guys are a great fit. I said this. I think Iowa State and UCF and Texas Tech and Oklahoma State, we're a great fit because we're all just passionate, insane people who will look for any opportunity to just poke and irritate on social media when there's no sports to talk about.
Let's wrap it with this one. You mentioned tiers that you had broken the teams. Which of those tiers did you have UCF in?
I had UCF in 3. Again, one thing I'm trying to figure out is, how do we use history, and how much can we use history to try and decipher the future? If you go and look at the best examples of the last 4 kind of G5 teams to Power 5 level, Utah to Pac-12, Louisville to the ACC, and TCU in West Virginia. Yes, I call the Big East G5, it was, to the Big 12. And look at what they did in their first few seasons in the league. Nobody bottomed out and went 2 wins. I mean, West Virginia and TCU were both, I think, 7-5 in year 1, and then 7. And then TCU sprang off for their 2 big seasons, and it took, I think, 5 years for West Virginia to get their first double-digit wins. Utah struggled a little bit and then got things going. Louisville was a little bit better, but that's because the ACC is, some of it's good and the rest of it's The ACC and the AAC are a lot more similar than people realize because there's some fan bases that don't actually care about Boston College. Not a UCF isn't going to be good. I think UCF is going to be a pain for everybody who has to play them. But my thing with the 4 incoming is I'm having a hard time based off history saying these programs are going to come in and compete for a Big 12 title in year 3. I absolutely see it. And those that have the foundation when they arrive, yes. And I might have been more considerate of Cincinnati being in a tier 2 if Luke Fickell was still there, but he's gone and I don't love that hire. And so I'm definitely knocked them down a peg. I just think like realistic expectations for the 4 incoming is, can we get to a bowl game in year 1 of the Big 12? And if someone thinks that's wrong and you guys think you should be challenging right away, great, explain it to me. Just understand that history is not on your side. I don't know how to use history because the transfer portal has changed so much about college football from the way it was when those teams left the G5 conferences to join a Pac-12. But that's all I have to go off of right now.
That's good stuff from Philip Slavin, founder of the 1012 Network. We appreciate you spending a few moments with us, and good job on the dunk.
Hey, you know what? That's it. This is actually mine. It's not the kids.
Fair. Yeah.
Good job. Philip, we'll talk to you again. Thanks much.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Philip. See you.
Seems about right, doesn't it, Adam?
Yeah, again, I think we've said that back half of the schedule is going to make or break how UCF does for this year, right? So if we're 4-2 cruising in those final 6 games, that's our chance to be, either bowl eligible or be, contending for a spot in a conference championship, right? I think that's going to make or break. I think talent will be there. I think it's going to be depth. I think it's going to be injuries. And I think if we can, roll the dice, get a little bit lucky on some of those, maybe you win some of these toss-up games. But, I think it's a fair point to say we have to kind of see how some of that stacks up, right? And to say, hey, we're going to go 13-0 off the bat, I think obviously I'll leave that to UCF, Mike. But I think there'll certainly be more challenges in this conference, and we have to see if UCF's up for those challenges as the season goes on.
All week we've been looking forward. Earlier in the week, though, we went and looked back a little bit with our guest earlier on the Sons of UCF YouTube channel, offensive lineman Ryan Swoboda, and you snagged a clip that's a good teaser for what was a great interview.
I know your answer. I know what it's going to be. But I need to ask it. You're on Twitter, so I know you see some of this stuff. A lot of rumors floating around after the ECU game. A lot of conspiracy theories. A lot of people with their own little ideas of what may happen. What, if anything, can you share with us? Are you willing to share with us about the ECU game?
I love a good conspiracy theory.
What does he say next, Adam?
The magic of the internet, Trace. You'll have to go to our YouTube page to find out.
Good stuff. Really enjoyed talking with Ryan, and it's been well received. So if you haven't had a chance, sit down, give Ryan a listen. All right, a lot of guests in this show tonight. We're glad Philip was here, and now God really doesn't need any introduction. As soon as he starts talking, you're going to recognize the voice. Eric Lopez joins us now, the voice of UCF softball, part of the In the Circle family, covering softball all across the country. Elo, welcome in.
Well, good to be here, boys. We're 1 week from tonight. I will be on the air calling UCF Georgia like I did a year ago, and can't wait. Top 20 matchup, marquee matchup of the night and opening night. So I appreciate you coming on, being on with you guys.
Can you end that right about 7:59 and just say thanks for watching us on the Plus?
I don't think so. I remember you and I talked about that. Like we were thinking about maybe I could come on right at the end of your show, and no. We played 3+ hours and ended a dramatic one of the dramatic finishes of the year with Shannon Doherty's walk-off, I think around after 9:00. So I don't like our chances on that, but you never know in the sport of softball. But we'll see what you never know. We'll see what surprises we have.
I was out at the softball complex earlier this week for a little feature, a little preview that will drop on Suns probably early in the week. Spoke with Shannon Doherty, spoke with Jada Cody. Let's listen to this bite now on Shannon talking about the schedule, which I want to get your comment on. And she says, get out of the way of UCF.
I think just competing. We have a lot of top 25 competition this year, so it's just gonna put our name a little more on the map. Like they know who UCF is now, but now I'm like we should like I want to show them like who UCF is. Like they know who we are, but I want to show them like UCF is a Power 5 team. Like don't ever like overlook us.
Don't ever overlook us. And that competition she talks about, as you mentioned, a week from now begins with Georgia. And again, another packed schedule, that Clearwater Invitational. Cindy Ball Malone, she's getting them ready for Big 12.
Oh, that's an understatement. They got like almost 8 to 10 teams in the top 25 ranked. Georgia's a team. I just interviewed Amanda Scarborough from ESPN earlier today. She thinks Georgia's a sleeper for the World Series this year. So that's right off the bat. UCF's going to go to UCLA later this year. They are the number 2 ranked team. I think the biggest threat to Oklahoma for the national championship. UCF's going to Oklahoma State later the year. They're the 3rd best team in the country. That might be the rivalry when we get to the Big 12 in softball. Once OU and Texas leave, it's Oklahoma State, UCF. You mentioned Clearwater, Alabama, UCF, and Alabama. Trace, that could get some feedback going there. And then how about this? I'm going to give you a scoop for you, right? Nobody knows about this. This is a Sons of UCF Live exclusive. UCF Sunday night in Clearwater, a couple weeks from now, they will play Mississippi State, 8 o'clock. That'll be on ESPN2, National Linear Television Primetime. That is one of the most coveted softball TV slots of the year, is that Sunday night with Clearwater, opposed to that NBA supposed all-star game, which is like just a scrimmage, whatever. But that's a big deal. That's a big deal for this program. So what Jada said, people are taking notice of this team now. The television numbers last year during the postseason run for UCF was tremendous. The numbers on ESPN Plus has been tremendous. And they're going to be showcased a lot more this year, so more eyes will be on them. I can tell you this, gentlemen. It's my 16th year with UCF softball. This is by far the biggest buzz I've had the offseason going into this point of people really excited about talking softball in the community, even across the country. People from other teams are telling me, how's UCF looking? The Big 12 fans are looking forward to it. So I think it's one of the most anticipated seasons from that standpoint. It's getting football-type hype, which I never thought I would see. It reminds me of 2018 football after that undefeated season in 2017 and all the kind of the expectations that came with that. I feel like we're in that boat right now with softball.
Why do you think we book you? Got to juice the ratings here on a Thursday night. Got to bring in a softball guy.
I'll try my best. We'll see what we can do.
Eric, pitching staff wise, Gianna Macha, Campbell Woodall have moved on. Who is going to be in the circle for UCF this year? Who are some names we have to know about that carry the pitching staff?
That's the biggest question of this team, right? This is the question of the year. And to me, obviously, you lose 2 great pitchers in Gianna Mancha, who's going to play in her 2nd season professionally this summer, was splendid in her pro. And, of course, Kamal Woodall, who you guys had her dad on, or mom, was it her mom or dad on the show last year with the home run ball in Greenville? She's now at Baylor in law school. So she's doing very well for herself. So you're right. Who steps into those shoes? It's a young staff. Caitlin Felton is probably the first name to think of. She was the freshman last year, was a top prospect, didn't get to throw a lot in the end because Kamal Woodall and Mancha kind of took over that circle. I think she's a name to remember. I think Sarah Willis, a transfer from Washington, is a tremendous 2-way player. Great athlete. Maybe the hardest thrower on the team, can throw up to 70, has a tremendous off speed, and also has a powerful bat. I think she may have actually the best power bat, which is kind of crazy, which considering some of the players we have in offense. She hit a ball against Florida in fall ball that hit the street. Trace, you know what I'm talking about. When you go into the complex, there's that little street you have to drive into before you get to the parking lot. She hit the home run towards that street. That is insane. She's tremendous there. Caitlin Cochran is another pitcher, a freshman to keep in mind. South Carolina kid, maybe the best highly touted ranking recruit since Shelby Turnier, who's probably going to go into the Hall of Fame in UCF next year. Angelina DeVoe returns. I think those are I think this is more of a committee, and talking to some of the players in the staff, the most variety they've had from a pitching staff. They can give you a lot of different looks, which they didn't really have last year. Even though Woodall and Mancha threw different stuff, it was more about location than actual different stuff. It was more different locations, whereas this staff has much more different variety. I'll give you another name, Macy Miles, a pitcher who can also hit. Her father, Les Miles. I think you're familiar with that man's work.
I may have heard of that guy.
I have heard
As
of
I
that.
mentioned, I spoke with Coach Ball Malone as well, Shannon Doherty and Jada Cody. Let's talk about Jada and Shannon. Shannon said, and as much as we know her as the walk-off queen, she didn't feel like she had her best, that there's more that she can do. And I thought that was really interesting that she felt that she left some stuff out there, that there's more that she can do.
Yeah, she did not have a great, by her standards, a great conference season statistically. And I think that's kind of what she's alluding to there. And I think there's a lot of the players that are returners that feel that way. I wondered how they would handle the success. Everybody's patting them in the back last year, but there's a lot of players that are motivated now more than ever before. They know they were literally 20 miles away from Oklahoma City, their ultimate destination, when they ran into the buzzsaw in Oklahoma. I think everybody feels like, hey, if we didn't run into Oklahoma, you're probably in the World Series. I think this team wants to get back there. One of their goals internally is to try to get a top 8 seed, host the regional and the supers, and get to OKC. There's a lot of unfinished business for the veterans. That sounds like a big ask, but a year ago, if you had me on this show a year ago tonight, I would have said they're thinking they could host a regional. I would have said, I think that's a little bit too much to ask there, especially with questions on the pitching staff. Well, they proved me wrong. They proved a lot of people wrong. So this is a very self-motivated team that will hold themselves to a high standard, and they understand that the eyeballs, there will be much more critics out there. They will be, and I think they realize that, but nobody's going to be harder on themselves than internally. And I think there's just a self-motivated group, and Shannon's a big part of that. Jada's a big part of that, because they're the two captains. They are the two faces of this program, and they're going to be the ones that's going to lead this program into the Big 12.
And Jada didn't take the offseason in slack. She stayed busy.
Yeah, she played for the U.S. national team up in Japan and in Guatemala, and first UCF softball player to ever be a part of the U.S. national team as a player. And I can tell you, talking to her coming back from that, you could tell, and I have always noticed this with players that play in the U.S. national team. There's that self-confidence that they get from being around other great players, from traveling. She is a much more confident player today than she was 1 year ago. And that's a scary thought for opponents, because I think she is, the sky's really the limit for her. All these years we've had great offensive players, but I would never compare them to Stephanie Best, the UCF Hall of Famer. Just no way. Jada Cody's the first player that I could say, yes, she belongs in that same conversation as far as offensive players and all-around player, to be in that same sentence as Stephanie Best as far as offense. That's how good she is, and that's just on her bat. She's a great catcher. She could play the corner at third. She's a tremendous athlete, and I think she's in for another monster year.
Elo, you mentioned you're back in the booth for another year. Do you have any new home run calls? Do you have any new material this year? Anything you're trying out that you want to maybe test out on the Sons of UCF audience?
Not sure yet. No, I mean, I'm very super. If it's working, don't. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Right? Like, that's the old saying. You don't want to get too cocky sometimes. You don't want to go Tony Romo there, Adam. Where you just try to do too much, and now people kind of turn on you. Yeah. I don't know if I'm going to do that. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I'll get Fran to go, Fran. No, I don't think that works. But we're excited. We're excited for another season. Francesca and Elle will join me. They'll be on ESPN Plus throughout the year, starting with the Georgia game. A lot of television. It's going to be fun. It's a lot of fun. We had a lot of great feedback from the audiences last year, and we had a great crew behind the scenes, a lot of students that really put into work on the broadcast, including, our center fielder, Janisha Rowe, actually works in production in the fall. So she was involved in doing replays and things for volleyball and soccer broadcasts and some of the basketball games. So it's kind of cool to see the students involved in the broadcasting production side while they're helping produce their fellow students play on the field. But I'm excited. Can't wait. Thursday night, I've kind of been itching. Had a great fall doing volleyball and soccer. I got to fill in men's hoops. But now it's hit me. It's hit me this week that, it's time to go. When Trace sent me that message to come on the show, I'm like, oh, wow, the season's here.
And what's your record in games you broadcast over the last year? It's
about 80%. 80% UCF win. That's a pretty good high ratio. Let's keep it that way. We'll see if we can keep it that way. If the young pitchers pitch to their potential and grow into it, I like our chances of keeping that high percentage, and we'll see what happens. Now, I don't have a basketball hoop like Philip, but I do have this prop. This is the American Conference Championship from this year that we had last year, I should say, 2022.
Did I miss it? Did Robert ask you to do that?
No, that's unscripted. Unscripted.
I try to show off the jewelry. This is what they won last year, and they're motivated to win it this year. And again, it's going to come down to pitching. What's interesting about that, all the great pitchers from last year in the American graduated. So it's a very young league pitching-wise.
Well, Media Day on Sunday morning, then Fan Fest out at the softball complex. So you'll be available for photos and autographs from 1 to 3 on Sunday?
I will. I do charge not very much, but
he just goes, I will.
I will be there. I will also make availability. I'm also available for media availability early in the morning, Sunday morning. Maybe not a better time to do it than to do it at that point. So
There's a
it
little
should be fun. First
batting
fest
practice.
ever.
I'd like to see you in the batting cage.
Nobody wants to see that. There's a reason why I'm in the booth and not on the field. That's not my expertise
Right.
there. That's why I have Francesca for. Francesca on the batting cages can put on a show. I cannot, but somebody else will probably from 1 to 3 at that fan fest at the complex.
All right, Eric, looking forward to your viral home run calls and walk-offs this season. Thanks for being with us again on Sons of UCF Live.
Anytime, Adam and Trace. Thanks for supporting UCF softball. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Elo.
Well, we've talked football, we've talked baseball, and softball rather. I guess we got to talk men's basketball. Do we?
I mean, we have.
We'll just do this real quick. They're 4-5 in the AAC, 13-8 overall. Lost their 4 straight. This is the UCF Mike Sour Grapes portion of the program. Lose 77-70 to Temple in overtime. Your guy, Lahatun, tied Ithiel Horton with 13 points each, and our guy, Leo Rodriguez, hops on for a few moments to recap. Now, Leo, you follow Elo, so you're going to have to bring the energy, buddy, this Thursday. Okay?
Man, I tell you
getting up and wandering off like Philip. You're here. We got you for 5 minutes. What was your big takeaway from that 4 straight loss?
Wow.
Nice hat, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Big shout out to Adam for that one. Thank you for that. For me, the biggest takeaway, I'll start with what happened in the game. In the game, we saw them jump out to a lead like they have before. During the season, they've gone out to pretty decent sized leads. I would say 10, 15 here. They let these teams come back and catch life. And yes, it's a game of runs. We've heard it over and over again. Yeah, I even tweeted something out about that. You can't have a team like Temple come back an inch into the game because it happened. They lost. Credit to Temple because they are a good basketball team. As they've beaten Houston, they beat USF, stuff that we haven't done. So yeah, that was the one thing that stood out. The letting them back into the game, that was a big, a blow. It was a big blow on them. And I would say, secondly, the performances from our players, Darius Johnson, our star players, we wanted them to be the ones to carry the team to victory and kind of put on for the team. And obviously Lahatun had a big game, big credit to him. He doesn't get much playing time. So that was good on his part, but we need these veterans to actually be the ones, putting up big numbers. And Coach Dawkins talked in the post-game conference about injuries and how it's hindered them throughout the season, which is true. Darius Johnson is back for his second game after, missing out maybe a month almost. And that was my second biggest takeaway. Those vets need to step up in bigger games. And I would say that the third takeaway is this team does not know how to handle, I guess, being adversity. Just, being down in a losing streak is tough. It's tough. Right? It's hard to recover from a losing streak, obviously. And they just haven't shown to have kind of like that fortitude to, let's get together and get a victory. Yes, they have played hard opponents in Houston, and Temple wasn't easy. But those are games you got to have, especially with USF. Maybe even try to steal Tulane on the road. They haven't really shown mental toughness in the last month, I would say, with the injuries they've suffered. So that's my biggest takeaway. That third one is my biggest takeaway.
All upbeat points here, Adam.
Well, I'm gonna stay upbeat. Leo, do you sense any quit in this team? Obviously, at this point, things are going a little bit sour. We heard Ithiel Horton in the post-game press conference talking about we have to keep fighting. Do you sense any quit in this team? Do you feel like this team is going to have the stones, the onions, if we will, to really try to make a good run here, or do you sense this team is ready to fold over?
They have the ability to make that run. They have the ability to kind of put together a nice little win streak. Maybe you can pull out a tough road win. It's like on Saturday against Cincinnati. I don't think it's going to happen. I do sense a little bit of they're not together. There's not a sense of urgency, but of course, coaches have to do their job, and I'm sure they're riling the guys up and to kind of get better, as the season ends, because we're almost heading into that second half of the conference schedule, and there needs to be a sense of urgency. And will they have it? I think they will. Now, Coach Dawkins talked about the small things that they're not doing on the court during the game, and that's going to be the key moving forward. Do they have that concentration moving forward and executing in the game where, they're not letting these teams go on runs or, scoring baskets when they actually need them. So it's going to come down to that. If they're going to have the concentration and the toughness to, will it together.
Saturday at Cincinnati at noon, Wednesday at Wichita State at 8 o'clock. Knights hope to snap their losing streak. Leo Rodriguez remains on a winning streak. Pinch hit for me out at Baseball Media Day. Leo, thanks for sending over that Greg Lovelady sound, and thanks for being with us on Suns Live.
Absolutely, guys. Thank you for having me.
See you, Leo.
All right. Catch Leo's work on the Sons of UCF YouTube channel. Expect a preview from John Weiss on the Suns website at twonightsmedia.com. Around the kingdom, before we open the mailbag, women's basketball, their game at SMU postponed. Bad weather. Knights 1-6 in the AAC, 10-9 overall. Saturday against ECU at home at 2, then at Cincinnati on Wednesday. Baseball note again, Media Day today. We will have some sound. Leo will have it up on his Twitter page. Catcher Ben McCabe, D1 Baseball's 21st ranked catcher. Second baseman Tom Jostin, D1 Baseball's 43rd ranked second baseman. And Central Florida Crusaders open up at the arena, indoor soccer at the basketball arena this Sunday at 2. Remember, DM me. I still have some free tickets that I can give you. Men's and women's team and former Knights Bridget Callahan and Yvonne Hayes are part of the women's Crusaders team. Catch the interview with Bridget on Sun's YouTube channel. And then we'll have the interview with Yvonne up there on Friday.
Tomorrow.
Yeah. Mailbag time.
An ever-evolving mailbag, Trace. This time we got a live welcome into the mailbag. A live welcome in.
It's Robert. 2 letters, 2 words. Is this a poker game night? Is this poker night?
It's that time again, boys. It's time to open the Brian W. Peterson Memorial UCF, Sons of UCF mailbag, brought to you by UCF Lauren and delivered by 2 letters, 2 words. And to answer your question, Trace, what do you think?
Hey guys, poker night.
Always poker night with Robert.
Memorial is not going to go over well in the Brian W. Peterson camp.
Yikes.
Robert, thank you. Good luck
Thanks,
at your
Robert.
game tonight.
Yes, sir. You guys have a good one.
We now do a lot. We take live mailbag.
This all has to be on
opens.
the paywall. You want to be a part of the live reads. Brian, the late Brian W. Peterson, choose one. Rather a gold jersey or Canaveral blue permanently added to the uniform rotations. Bring back the gold. I'm not buying into the blue.
I'm gonna go Canaveral blue. Do something different. I'm gonna go Canaveral blue. By the way, I talked to Brian Peterson today. Very much alive.
And Brian's on screen.
And he's on screen now. Very much alive.
Rumors of his demise have been greatly
exaggerated.
At Lonely Bee UCF, which group needs to move on more? The people that want Pewter back or the people still clinging to the archaic medieval mascot? Say goodbye, Pewter people. That's not good.
I love Pewter. I want Pewter back.
We're divided. You're usually the neutral guy. Yeah, we're divided.
Am I? I love the Pewter. I thought the Pewter was a great touch.
Emptiness 4, and then there's a series of questions along this line. With the Big 12 schedule finally out, only team UCF not hosting Oklahoma or Texas. How do you feel? Certainly hoping for at least one of them to come back. Mr. Matt Dolan, what's the bigger, let me say this slowly, Florida ducking UCF for the New Year's Six Bowl, or Texas ducking UCF in the 2023 schedule? UCF, BYU, Cincy, Houston all get to host Texas or OU. UCF misses out. WTH. By the way, I think Florida ducking
bigger
UCF
duck, yes.
was bigger.
Way bigger.
I'm not disappointed. It's fine with me. All these are new teams. I'm not hung up on Texas and Oklahoma having not come to town.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been nice, but I mean, I didn't spill my Cheerios when I realized that they weren't on the schedule. I do think it's interesting. Philip explained a little bit earlier what he thinks is going on behind the scenes and what they're trying to accomplish here with the schedule. Perhaps there was some politicking on Texas or Oklahoma's part in effort to try to get out early. This is all money based, and that's really how this boils down to. So would I love to see one of them in the bounce house? Yes, but I didn't spill my Cheerios over it. I actually don't even eat Cheerios, by the way. They smell.
They smell.
Yeah.
Black Gold Guido, who's really great. Thanks for the engagement. Questions throughout the week. I try and answer them.
all week. Yeah.
I can't save them all, or it'd be the whole segment. You gotta, you get money in here. What's acceptable first year in the Big 12 for football? 6-6. Bowl possibility at 6-6. I'm holding on to that.
I think 6-6 is the floor I'd like to see. That's the floor where I'm willing to still be okay. I think we have room to go above that, but the absolute bare minimum, I guess, of acceptable for me is 6-6.
Zeebel's UCF. Would you rather UCF win 6 or 7 games but lose to OU and only win 4 or 5, but UCF beats OU? 6 or 7. I don't care whether they beat Oklahoma or not if they get to 6 or 7.
Yeah, we're not a natural rival with OU. It's just a Dylan Gabriel thing. And who knows if he's playing in that game at that point. I mean, it's still a long way to go. So I'd rather take the easy wins than stick it to Sockboy. Although I wouldn't mind that either.
At NightFan94, you doubted me that I wouldn't run one of your questions. I got both of them, NightFan94. The new DB transfers all highlighted their aggressiveness and tackling and strengths. Can we anticipate a secondary with tighter coverage schemes? Can we please anticipate a secondary with tighter coverage schemes is the question. We don't know. That's going to be a question for the new D coordinator. We don't know. NightFan94 with the second question. Late ad, Adam. True or false?
No.
Trace excited about the Knights versus Knots matchup in the spring game. Not.
You got to admit, those basketball jerseys are sweet, though. Those are nice with a little swoop and all that stuff.
As long as it stays a novelty act, I can deal with it, but it's not going to be the permanent look.
I posited this for you for a second on the first question. Perhaps we're playing off coverage because that's the best way that we had to play based on the talent we had. I don't know. Maybe there's a strategic reason why we decided we couldn't do something different. Who knows?
At Spursy Knight, what grade do you give recruiting?
Give me a B+.
Why the B+? Why not an A? Orlando Sentinel a lot with an A grade, yeah. A+ grade.
I think we were in on some local kids. I would love to have seen us close the deal on. Some kids that got away from us. I know NIL obviously is a challenge. I also would have loved to have hung on to either Christian Leary or Antonio Greer. I know the transfer portal can be a little tricky. I would have loved one of those veteran guys in the mix. So give me B+.
I'm going to go A- right now because you're not going to win them all. And what pushes it over for me is Andrew Harris. Robert, 2 letters, 2 words. Complex math question here. Big 12 making $380 million a year on TV deal through 2030-31. If every player receives an average of $40,000 a year for their participation in the TV coverage, that would be $48 million a year. Does this seem like a more sustainable model than the collectives? You do wonder whether this moves to that sort of salary-based system.
I always say, I find this hysterical, Trace. The entire NIL stuff started because Ed O'Bannon was mad that he was in a video game and got no money from it, right? TV contracts exploded. There's jerseys all over the bookstore, and players were like, hey, I've got my jersey here for $100. I get $0 of that. So they band together. We want to do these legislative stuff, and NIL comes together. And yet they still get none of that money. That's the thing I find funny. Like, all this money is still
NIL
staying,
now.
right?
This is collective.
This is pay for play, correct.
We've got to be better about our terminology. We've got to stop calling
it's pay for play. Let's stop calling it NIL. It's pay for play. And the reality
is NIL is paying the kid to sign autographs at the car dealership. That's not what this is.
It's not happening. And all this money is still available from TV contracts. I don't know anything about Robert's math. I don't know if that makes sense or not. I'm sure it does. He seems smarter than me. He plays poker, so I'm assuming he can count. But I still think there's a pool of money that is technically still what's available. And yet what we're doing is saying, hey, everybody else, pull your money together. We'll keep all the money we really had. Now you all pay for the players. I think there's got to be a better way to figure that out.
Yeah, because it's not coming out of the TV contracts, right?
I'd say not currently, no. But, I mean, that's where the largest dollars are at, right? If we really want to do something about this.
And _all-night_. Here we go. We open up the basketball part of the questions. Have we put ourselves into a tough spot making excuses for Johnny year after year? One hot streak talent we had in 2018 isn't exactly consistency. We're going to be a doormat in the Big 12. Hey, JP Gilbert, as a guest on our Tuesday Schedule React show. Will Quan Lee give Johnny Dawkins a discount on his inevitable move out of town. Quan Lee with many sponsorship deals, one of which is moving. So I include that one, JP. I am in camp Dawkins. I'm not moving off of that though. If we're dealing next week with 6 losses, it's going to be harder to justify that position.
I said Quan Lee, no discounts. You're a young kid. Get as much money as you can. You're not in a position to give hometown discounts. And I think 2 things can be true at the same time. I think we can certainly have had our challenges with injury. We certainly don't invest enough in the program. But we also at some point may need a different voice, a different direction. I think those 2 things can be true at the same time. To your point, Trace, more and more it's trending like perhaps we just need some sort of shakeup. That does not mean Johnny Dawkins is a bad coach. It does not mean he's a bad person. He may be the nicest human being on earth, frankly, right? But at some point, a new voice may be required. Something new may be needed. And it sounds like more and more we are trending in that direction.
I would just make the argument, we'll move on from this topic, let every coach into the Big 12. Terry Mohajir's got bigger problems and challenges ahead of him than replacing coaches and throwing them into the fire. So at @BlackGold_Ed, name one bounce house enhancement you'd like to see completed before the first Big 12 home game. Better Wi-Fi.
I'm going to go shade. I'd love some shade.
Not happening.
Yeah, I know it's not, but that's why this is the mailbag.
Yeah. At Golden Knight _2, what's your most and least favorite tradition that UCF and the fan base does? You know, it's a funny question because it almost seems like there are so few things that are baked in traditional with UCF.
Yeah, it's hard. I was trying to think what tradition looks like. I mean, obviously, I love Zombie Nation. I love playing Spriggan before the game, everyone bouncing. I will actually say this. I don't know if this is a tradition, but the thing I love most about the UCF fan base, and unfortunately it's happened too often the last year or so, when something happens, when somebody needs support, when something, that's less than positive happens, so many people walk out and support that person. So many people are offering their support on Twitter, social media. If it's, somebody's an NIL deal for Maddie last year to get her brother to the game, so many people from UCF come together. Tragic events that happen like losing Lynn or losing James, so many people come together. That's probably my biggest takeaway is just when it's time for UCF fans to step up and help one of their own, time and time again, they always do it. They never disappoint. I don't know if that's a tradition, but I think it's the thing I love most about what UCF's about.
I like that. But, it's funny. What are the traditions? I guess you're going to say Spirit Splash is a tradition. I think that's great for the program. But is Nugget now a tradition? Because I ditched Nugget in a heart. I just like that.
You went really anti-Nugget in a hurry. I'm not sure what she.
Now and certainly all of this space game, I think that's become tradition. Open on the schedule when that might be. I know there's some resistance in some pockets that it be against Houston, but how could it not be? I understand that's at the end of the schedule, but Houston, come on, NASA, you got.
I think that makes a ton of sense. I think makes a ton of sense. Last game of the year against Houston, I think that makes a ton of sense. Obviously, they just moved family weekend, so I guess you open up another date where you could do space weekend. But the game before that is the potential military appreciation weekend because it's near Veterans Day. So I feel like that's the option. I did see UCF Mike was saying essentially we should do this every year, and Eric DeSalvo responded back and saying the Big 12 does not guarantee any sort of rivalry game, so there's no guarantee we'll play Houston every year. There's no guarantee that game will be last. So perhaps that's a bit of a conundrum, but this year feels like a layup. Go for the Houston game.
That's interesting. I don't see how they're not going to play the same teams. I think you're getting a preview of the 2024 schedule. UCF's going to West Virginia. Cincinnati's coming to Orlando, right? I mean, so you can see some parts of that schedule. You're not going to Kansas again in back-to-back years, right? What's not a tradition? What was that?
Firing cannons.
Oh, firing cannons is coming back. It's probably before you, right? I mean, it lingered while you were at school, but people still jingle keys.
Yeah, I remember the jingle. I was in the jingle key crowd.
Eric Edwards, jingle keys.
Eric was there jingling keys, yeah.
Timo's song, ditch that.
I don't mind that. See, everyone else gets really upset about, listen, Frankie Valli, not exactly. Yeah, we got to build it up better. You got to figure that out. I think a good sing-along, everyone's together in the game, I think that's a cool. I will tell you, the Boise State game in 2021, at like 12:45 in the morning, somehow that song came on. Everybody was soaking wet, hammered, tired, annoyed, and for some reason that song just made everybody happy. It was helpful that we were coming back to win that game, by the way, but that was a fun moment. I'll never forget that one.
How about tradition of a Suns tailgate, home and away? Mike's famous potato salad.
Tailgate. We're looking at tailgate again for 2023. Eric says,
Lubbock,
how about nights?
baby, Lubbock.
Sans Mike, nights during the anthem. Is that a good tradition?
There's a lot of people that don't like that.
I know.
But I'm fine with it. It's unique.
I do it. I do it outside of UCF too, which probably is not good.
It's funny when you're at a game and it doesn't happen. It happens at Orlando City home games, so I like that. So, All right, good show. We've been busy this week. Be sure to go to Suns YouTube, subscribe, watch the Ryan Swoboda interview. He was an interesting conversation for us. We appreciate all the guests that stopped by on Tuesday for our schedule reaction show. Philip earlier, Eric Lopez, and of course, Leo. We missed UCF Mike tonight, but we thank all of you for being here. Adam, thanks for all the good work you've done. You'll have the interview, another Crusader interview with Von Hayes up on Friday, and then I'll get you some softball stuff, and we'll have a preview out early next week.
Yes.
Okay. For Adam, I'm Trace. Go Knights, everyone.
This is the moment where I realized I did not get a player for the end of the end of that. I can do this one. He's not here.
Mike's a loser.
Does that count?